Hello, and welcome to the Business of Business podcast, Two Daughters and Her Dad. I'm Jack Dempsey. I'm dad, and I have with me one daughter, Jennifer. Right before our recording today, the other daughter kind of fell a little ill, so we decided to move ahead with the podcast today without our typical host, Stacy. Hopefully she'll feel better real soon. But we have the other daughter, Jennifer. Jennifer, how are you doing today? Good. Wonderful is good. So today we want to talk about managing people versus mentoring people. Because again, depending on the type of business that you have, one's probably more effective than the other. But again, I don't think any one way is right for every business. So we want to just break that down today and see, maybe if this would help some of our entrepreneurs get a better understanding of maybe their style, what their style should be, when it comes to, running their business and managing or mentoring people. So, Jen, I know we, in our rehearsal here before we hit record, we were talking about this in a lot of detail. So, and you basically made a shift in your business, from managing people to mentoring people. So, talk about that a little bit. What did managing people look like, and now what does mentoring people look like?
Again, 8 years into business, I realized very quickly that I had a great deal of passion for mentoring hairstylists, and that looked different for me over the years on how I approached that. Obviously, early on in my career, it really just started as like teaching the actual craft of hair, and now it really has transformed more into the business of being a hairstylist and on how to be successful. But, about 5 years into business, I learned very quickly about myself. And I knew this, right? I knew the difference between managing and mentoring. But about 5 years into business, I realized that I did not like managing. And in my business and in my situation, for commission-based hairstylists, I don't think that they necessarily liked me managing them. But at that time, I had two kind of groups of employees inside of my business. I had assistants that got paid hourly, and they had a schedule, what time to be at the salon, what time to leave, and you have lists, right? This is what you need to accomplish throughout the day. And then we have the commission hairstylists that, create their own schedule and kind of come and go when they have appointments and when they don't have appointments. So two different hats for me inside of my own business. And after a while, I just felt so exhausted by kind of having that same conversation under that management hat of like the importance of being on time and, why didn't the bathroom get cleaned? And, that just, after a while, it was like, this is not what I want to be doing. And the most wonderful part about being an entrepreneur and owning your own business is that we have the opportunity to make changes in our business as we see fit. Now, they're very scary to make huge changes. And I have been in a season of like turning my whole business upside down and changing every aspect. So I'm not suggesting doing that. But you do have the power inside of your business to change. So I decided that I wasn't going to have, assistants inside of my business anymore. And I was not going to wear that management hat. And not only has that been an adjustment for me, but it's been an adjustment for, my staff, because obviously they have all seen me in both of those roles and really micromanaging. I've been honest with you guys on this podcast before. Like, I am a control freak. That is something I am willing to admit to you. I know this about myself. I work hard to not be this way, but it is one of my faults where I would rather just do it all because then I know that it's going to be done right. I'm not good at delegating. I'm the opposite of dad. Dad's like, delegate all day long. And I'm like, it's fine. I'll just keep piling this on my plate. It'll be fine. I'll be fine. And then everyone wonders why I have a complete mental breakdown. But so yeah, so that was a huge change for me. And so I decided, right, I had a choice to, if I got rid of this managing hat, I could really pour all of my energy and focus and really where my passion is into mentorship and coaching and helping hairstylists really thrive within our industry. And I have seen such a huge change, not only within my business, at the start of this year, but within myself as a leader and as a coach. I feel like I've only gotten stronger, just being able to focus really on that.
So when you were doing the managing, just for our entrepreneurs, what would be an example of at that point managing people? What was maybe something specific that you found yourself doing in managing people that ultimately exhausted you?
Yeah, I think it was, again, because I had those two groups, right? So for those who don't understand, it's like we have the hairdressers that are working with the assistants, right? So then I was always included in it, right? So then the hairdresser would come to me and say, this person is not shampooing right. They're not using the right verbiage. They didn't, do the system correctly. So then it was then on me to go back to the employee and again, teach them again, this is the system. When a client walks in, this is the system that we do. When they check out, this is the system we do. And then it was, why are you late? Literally, it got to a point where I offered to buy one of my employees an alarm clock because they could not get to work on time. Right. And I'm like, this is insane. We're talking about grown people. And I had 3 meetings on the importance of being on time. And that was really my breaking point of like, I don't know any other suggestions to give you to be here on time. It was those kinds of conversations and moments that, again, where I'm not in a position that I can hire a manager to handle these things, right? So for me, it was, I'm spending so much time and my energy necessarily help the business move forward. And so for me, when it came time to make that decision, it was easier to shift and move in a different direction, and just learn to readjust, restructure the business to not have those hourly employees anymore. So that way I could truly focus on what is driving the revenue, right? Because inside of my business, if I'm paying someone hourly, that's an expense. So so after a while, I'm like, I'm spending so much of my time on things that are not making me or the business any money. And this is foolish for me to continue to do it this way.
So in that case, one of the ways that you kind of eliminated, the on time problem was just you took away people being hourly. I mean, is there still the expectation about being on time?
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. I'm not trying to like beat around the bush here. Obviously, at the end of the day, that client was just that person that was working for me was just not a good fit because they couldn't be on time, right? But what's difficult is, especially when you have a business that requires talent, when you have 99% of all things good within an employee and 1% bad. To say, well, they're super talented. They're they see a lot of clients. The clients, everything else is so wonderful except for this. So I'm trying to fix the 1% and spending so much time on the 1%. At the end of the day, really the decision was they're just not a good fit because they can't be on time. So no, that wasn't necessarily the situation, but it was, again, having to wear a management hat and a mentor hat. I didn't have the capacity for both at the end of the day. And I
Gotcha.
tried, right? It's not like, you try for a number of years to try and make this work. And I didn't, for a long time, think that there was any other way until I hired a new business coach and then really discovered that there's a completely different way I can go about this. And I can eliminate all the things I don't like to do, I'm not good at, that's not serving me or anybody else in any way, and is not making us any money. So let's take these things outside of the business, restructure, and make this make sense. Because again, as an entrepreneur, I know sometimes it's hard to believe, but we go into business to make money and to be happy. So at any time, if something inside of your business is not benefiting you, is not serving you, is not producing revenue, then we have to take a look at it and see how can we change this. And that's exactly what I did. And it led to so much change, so much positive change, and has really taken a lot off my plate that wasn't doing anything for the business.
So, what type of business, would you think an example would be for that probably would require more of a management type of, you know,
This, right, Dad? Don't you? Like most businesses are going to require that management hat, unless you have, employees that are working off of commission, like we do, right? You kind of have those entrepreneurs inside of your business, and have that kind of career mindset. But when most businesses are going to require management. So I understand that I'm very fortunate in that way that I could make that change. But for you, Dad, you're in the same position. I think your perspective is good for our listeners to understand too. Is we have for you have your office and you have people that are salary or hourly, and they come to work at a certain time and they leave at a certain time and they work your office hours. And then you have agents inside of your business that are commission. They're entrepreneurs. They're kind of their own boss, but you also have to wear a management and a mentorship hat at some point. So how have you balanced both kind of employees inside of Dempsey Weiss?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And I think, for the management piece of it, I hired that away. I have someone to kind of manage, the things that need to be managed from the standpoint of, again, keeping track of vacation time, keeping track of sick time, making sure that, again, people are getting to work on time, and, those things that I just certainly can't, couldn't even begin to handle, with my schedule, nor would I want to. But there is a aspect of that, that has to happen, because we do have 2 employees. But even with the W-2 employees, I mean, that kind of stuff needs managed. But, we're not really, we're trying to set the expectation, though, that we're not looking to manage your day-to-day workflow. We're not asking you to say, okay, what do you have on your agenda today? Or what did you get done yesterday? We're not doing any of that. We can gauge that, I believe, just more by, ultimately, if there's clients or customers that are, that are upset about something or didn't get something in a timely manner, we can see all that, but we don't really pursue, the day-to-day workload. But there are certainly the other things about running a business that has to be managed. And then from a mentoring standpoint, yes, I mean, even, again, even today we have a meeting with some of the, the staff, and, it's not so much of talking about, you know, their workload. It's more about trying to equip them, to have a better understanding of, what the goals are, what the vision is, the fact that, right now we're heading into the, last quarter of the year, how we want to approach that. And, and in our case, the fact that we have multiple profit centers. And so because of those, we want to make sure everybody kind of has an understanding of what those profit centers, stuff that they're not directly involved in, but how they can still help us, open up opportunities within those other profit centers. So as an example, we're having the head of our health department is speaking to some of our customer service reps that aren't in the health department about, open enrollments for Medicare, open enrollments for different programs that are out there that are only certain times of the year. And we just want to make sure they have, again, at least a familiarity with what those timeframes are, what that looks like, and possibly some ways how they can create some opportunities from that, just in their day to day. So to me, that equipping, educating will ultimately be what it falls into that mentoring category. That's what we try, and I try to focus on with staff, and then also with our salespeople. Because again, salespeople, that are commissioned, that's another completely different component. Because they're not, necessarily having to show up 9 to 5 to get paid. They need to show up, and get business done to get paid. And so how can I, help them, and equip them to do that? So, there's both in our business. There's both, and I guess there's going to be some of that in all businesses. But then, contrast that to, maybe a business where, again, it's more, you have a workforce that is, maybe not necessarily a place they're going to work at for a career. It might be kind of a transition job out of college or during high school, where you're dealing with more of that type of workforce. And again, you can still certainly have a mentoring role in those situations, but I think you're going to have more of a management, like this is what we got to get done today. Here's the list that has to get done. Here's you know here's the stock, the shelves that have to get stocked. Here's those things. Trucks have to be unloaded. I mean, there's just there's things that, again, that's just more of someone there directing and guiding people throughout their day to get the overall work done. But in your business, my business, and a lot of businesses, I think you can definitely have both. But there's no doubt both of them take a specific, really talent in order to, and mindset to really do effectively. And I think that's where making sure, as a leader and an entrepreneur, you're developing yourself. And Jen, I know you've been spending more and more time developing yourself, which ultimately helps you develop your people. So what's a couple things? I know you're doing your coaching. What are other ways that you develop yourself?
It's so funny. I joke about this, but it's actually true. I decided to fire my therapist and hire my coach full time, because my business coach has been the most in 8 years of entrepreneurship. It has been the most impactful decision I've made, not only for my business but for myself. And I think just really, again, taking that hat off, and knowing that I had a passion for mentorship and helping and giving, doesn't necessarily mean that I was good at it. So, it really took a lot of understanding, and kind of working with her to say, hey, this was the situation, this is how I reacted, this is what I said, this is, and being coached through that as a leader to say, how can I show up better? How can I respond better? Did I have the right mindset when I was reacting in this situation for this decision? Um, and really trying to hone those skills. And just like you said, Dad, it's I think you have to have a little bit of passion there, obviously, to want to do that kind of work. But it does take time and effort to hone in on, understanding the skill behind all of that. And so I'll give you guys one example of, kind of before I felt like my team kind of knew that they could, you know, come to me to vent, to complain. And I think that ultimately that was in trying to grow other leaders around me, and just having a desire for especially women to have a stronger mindset. It's like I need to start teaching them kind of the things that I've learned, right? And so when they come to me with problems, it's not necessarily me giving them the answer, but helping them think through what the real problem is, and what makes sense, and learning not to make decisions based off emotion. I can't stress kind of that enough to our listeners and to you guys to say, if you have that will to really want to be a strong leader, help you get there, will just explode, in your benefit.
Well, that's right. And, and if, when you take that mentoring role seriously, basically the way I've always looked at it is, you're investing in people, you're giving them something. But, here's the fact of it. You got to have something to give. And so, if you're not developing yourself, then you're going to soon run dry of being able to, speak into other people's lives around, whatever it may be. So, kind of being a continuous learner, being focused on that is critical, because then you always have the experience, the knowledge to be able to speak into situations that you weren't able to before, because you just didn't have your own skill set there.
Yeah.
So that's self-development. But with that being said, depending upon your business, the management piece of it is a skill set too. And so understanding, how do I manage people when I have to manage them, and how do I do that effectively, is something that you should also have some level of focus on, if that is, part of your role, because not everybody's the same, so sometimes you have to be able to understand the managing people, especially if you have, a larger group, might look one way for one group and a different for someone else. But at the end of the day, management is a skill set too. So, can you hear my dog?
Yes.
Of course. Of course you can. So, anyway.
And you're right, that not everybody is good at managing people, right? So that is, I think it's good to identify that within yourself. I mean, again, when you're first starting a business, sometimes you don't have an option. But, I do still think it's healthy for you as an entrepreneur to kind of walk some of those things out. Because how will you learn if you don't do, right? So Dad kind of learned that early on in your business, where it's like, not only do I not have a desire to manage, I don't have the time to really, right? I'm more useful in this area. I can hire a manager. And so I think it's good to help identify that within yourself, within your business, to make better decisions for your business. But, I wanted to tell our listeners that it's funny, because even as I work with my business coach, I can think back and be like, well, my dad already taught me all of this. Why do I have to spend hundreds of dollars for someone else to tell me this? And now I wish Stacey was here because even now, but like growing up, guys, we knew this about my dad, right? So it's like, all right, listen, I'm gonna ask dad to help pay for me to go on this trip to New York City for this hair show. And then my siblings would be like, well, you got to have a plan. You can't just go asking him. Like you have. So then we all four of us would be like, all right, so this is what I'm going to go to dad. I'm going to say the trip is $800. And I'm going to ask him, I'm only going to ask him for 200. And then, so it's funny how you have instilled these things in us at such a young age. And then, I'm still spending a lot of money to learn it from someone else. But,
well, here's the key to that is that, most of the things we know and learn, we've already learned.
Right.
We just need to hire people to remind us what we've already known.
Correct.
Because that's what and that might be a nugget alert, right?
Yeah.
Because again, that is the fact. I mean, I remember reading about a famous golf coach, and he said, I can teach someone how to play golf in about 5 lessons. After that, I'm just reminding them what I already taught them.
Right.
And so I think that there's a lot of truth to that. So, we can quickly kind of forget what we already know. So having that reminder. So,
yeah.
Well, any last thoughts, Jennifer, before we end this podcast?
No, I thought this was a great conversation and very powerful stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah. Well, again, we certainly missed our other daughter, Stacey, being part of this today. So again, hopefully she's resting and going to be feeling better real soon. Just want to thank everybody, for, again, just your participation and listening. Make sure you're sharing us. Make sure you're letting people know about us. I think we're coming up on soon to come up on the end of our 5th year of doing the podcast. So I don't know, maybe our next podcast we'll be doing a review of this past year. So maybe we'll have some stats on how many podcasts make it 5 years. But I don't think it's a high percentage, but I could be wrong, but we'll find out. But again, that's just because, first of all, we love entrepreneurship. We love to share it. And we believe that entrepreneurship, is really very difficult, but it's also the safest way to go in this world when it comes to work, because we see all the time people who have put their trust in someone else for their livelihood, only to find themselves getting downsized out or changes or whatever it may be. So entrepreneurship is hard. Getting started is hard. But again, you are in control of your own destiny, and that's what we love. So again, thanks for listening, and we look forward to seeing everybody on our next episode.